the purpose of this first call, Module 1, is to answer whatever questions you all have. I will answer the questions that came in. If any of you have questions that are triggered by those, or just other questions that you have that you didn't send in, you can ask afterwards. I'll give you a little bit of my own thoughts before that, and kind of set the stage a little bit for this program. Some of you may have heard me talk about this in regards to doing live events, but whenever I do live events, especially the longer events like ECCP and just more personal development events rather than strategy events, what I've learned to do, what I've learned that the room really needs is to be heard. And what I mean by that is I will generally start all of my personal development events with just like a group what's up session. And it could be, tell me why you're here, or what's the one thing you want to get out of this. We did this at the live event. It just wasn't as long as it could have been if we would have dived into some of the concepts and conversations. But what I've found with a group, especially, when you give the group a chance to be heard early on in a program, early on in a live event especially, then number one, it's somewhat of an icebreaker. People get to hear other people and share. And what it also does, though, is it at least acknowledges and addresses whatever is sort of at the surface, whatever are the current thoughts. And if you don't give people an opportunity to express whatever's on the surface, then a lot of times they can't be present at the level that they could otherwise be during the event. And so when I do live events, that's one of the main reasons that I do it, is so that everybody can sort of settle in and feel a lot more calm. And so one of the reasons I decided to do this first call as a laser coaching call is for that reason too, as well as let's just see what questions are up in the community so that we can start with a baseline of similarity, because a lot of you will notice that your question is the same that somebody else has, and maybe you guys can continue these conversations offline or in the group or what have you. But for us to all say, okay, these are the questions that we as a group have, then we're going to filter some of them, meaning that we're going to I will tell some of you, okay, we'll do that, but I don't want to do it now. That's not until we get into this phase of the program, or why don't you go look for this particular resource and maybe you get more information. And then some of them I'll address in detail, in depth now on the call. So I will never dodge a question, or hopefully never intentionally at least invalidate a question or leave a question to be unanswered. If you ever feel like there's a question that you asked or somebody else asked and it wasn't the full question, or you really didn't know how to implement it, then please ask again. Please re-clarify or just say that you didn't really fully understand, or you didn't get the level of clarity that you need to put it in motion, because this whole program is about motion and actually implementation and creating something powerful for each and every one of you. And we got to do it quickly, meaning we got to get in motion quickly. So this program is a year, but I don't want you to think like this program is a year. Let me get my slides ready to go here. When the mind knows it has a lot of time, then often what happens is there's no urgency. When the mind thinks that it has to be in urgency mode, then a lot of times it's not present with the work that it's doing. So neither one of those at the end of the spectrum, neither one of those taken to an extreme, is good. But when we have a goal for a year from now or 5 years from now, the unconscious mind really doesn't engage in the future. It doesn't understand the future. So when you tell yourself, if you do this work 5 years from now or a year from now, or even 3 months from now, you're going to feel better, you're not appealing to the unconscious mind because you're not speaking its language. The unconscious mind operates in experiences. It operates in the present moment. And so while the idea of us being together for a year is really good, the important thing for you to stay on top of is to make sure that you're still operating with urgency. Now, ideally, that urgency isn't of external nature, meaning it's not because of a deadline that you put on yourself or somebody else gave you, or any kind of external measure of approval, or anything really externally, extrinsic. Ideally, the urgency is because people need you now. That's the urgency. And if it's coming from internal reasons like that, if the source is internal urgency, then you're going to be more inspired to take action. You're going to have a lot more leverage emotionally to overcome the obstacles that show up. But if your leverage is external because you have to meet a deadline, or you have to impress somebody, or anything related to approval and these external, extrinsic resources, then you're just not going to be coming from the rooted place of leverage and urgency and purpose and, inspiration that pretty much everybody's going to need in this program. So this program is somewhat of a risk in the sense that I'm not teaching you what you want. I'm teaching you what you need. That's my goal. And very, very few people will ever sign up for what they need. People just want what they want. They want it to be easy. They want it to be fast. And that's what most people in this online marketing industry and coaching industry specifically, that's what they're searching for. That's what they're demanding. And that's what they continue to experience. These shallow, I'll say programs, and I'm not trying to throw anybody else under the bus in terms of the people that teach certain programs, because it's really about the one doing the demanding. It's what we are demanding of the market. So if we continually go after what we want, chances are we're not going to get what we need. And I don't think we talked about this at the 2-day live event, although I've been talking about it in different conversations. So I want to presence this here at the beginning of this course. What most marketing programs are going to show you is, let's just say it's the surface of marketing. So what a lot of people are wanting is to increase their views on YouTube or increase their fans on Facebook, although that's nowhere near as valuable as it once was a couple of years ago. They want to increase the size of their email list. They want to increase visibility of some kind. And so a lot of these programs are teaching how to increase your marketing success, which is great. And a lot of the programs absolutely work. So you can learn how to increase your Instagram following, or increase your Facebook following, or increase your engagements, or build a big email list. But that's the outside of marketing. Okay. That's the invitation. That's the visibility piece of getting people to actually look at you and see you. If you don't have an offer that people want to buy, none of that other stuff matters. None of it. In fact, it might be worse, especially internally, to have a lot of people that don't seem to be responsive. So I'll give you an example. I have an email list of over 30,000 people right now. And what that email list produces in all forms, financially, engagement-wise, responses, is 1/10 of what it produced 4 years ago when the email list was 8,000 people. So I want this to really land on you. When we had an email list of 8,000 people, the responses we would get, the engagement, and the money that we made was 10 times more than what that email list makes now. And it's almost 4 times as big. So with almost 4 times more, it produces about 10 times less. For all kinds of reasons, and I'm not going to get into that right now. We will dive into a lot of this throughout the course. But I will share with you one thing that we did. I actually didn't know I was doing this today. I had written a couple emails a couple weeks ago, and I didn't realize that I had actually queued them up to go out. And then I just got, I think like 200 to 300 responses so far this morning with a very simple question. The question is, are you still committed? Now, this was to the Mary Kay list. So my subject line was, are you still committed to Mary Kay? And I'm blown away at how many people have responded. I mean, literally hundreds. So there are ways that we can engage our list differently than the ways that they're used to, or differently than the ways that we have engaged our list if we have an email list. And when I say list, there's an email list, there's a Facebook following, there's social media following, Instagram, Pinterest, whatever. All of that is your community. And usually we use the word list to mean email list, how many people are on your actual email. But there will be times when it's basically interchangeable with community, meaning how many people are in your tribe, how many people are paying attention. Teresa said she responded to that email. She did. And she's not even, she's like, I'm on all your lists. But for whatever reason, that question was disruptive enough to cause people to take the time that it takes to hit respond and actually type something in. Now, you might think that doesn't take a whole lot of time. Yes, it does. Nowadays, people are so stingy with their time. So we have to create something so valuable for them that they will overcome their natural desire to not act. Now, you might think it doesn't take a whole lot of time to respond and type yes, which is what most of the responses are. But it takes more time to do that than it does to delete the email. And it takes more time to do that than it does to create some kind of system where you don't ever even see the email, filtering systems and so forth. So we're in that world where attention is the most valuable asset that we are trying to grab as marketers. And so the value of the size of our list and the size of our communities is nowhere near what it used to be. As my example with my email list proves, at least in my experience. And if you're looking for ways to increase the outside of marketing, increase the surface marketing, or just increase the exposure of marketing, that doesn't matter unless you have something that actually converts. Meaning, people will watch, we'll use YouTube as an example. People will watch YouTube, then they'll click somewhere, go to a website of yours, join an email list, and somewhere in there, there's something that they're going to buy. If they don't ever buy the thing, then from a financial standpoint, at least, then more people watching the videos really has no value. It has no financial value. And so for most people, the problem with their business is on the inside of it, not the outside of it. Not how many people can you attract on social media platforms or how many people can you get on an email list. None of that matters financially to the success of a business unless there are people buying things, unless you're serving them. Now, you all know me enough to know that I'm not saying that the only thing that matters is somebody coming in and buying something. And we're running a business and you need cash flow and you need customers in order to help them in order to continue to fuel your dreams. So it's important that we always keep that as a consideration. So my point is this: what most people are actually missing are in the guts of the business, not in the outside layers of the business. But what everybody sees in other businesses is the outside layers of the business. So we tend to think that that's what we need to do. We need to increase our reach. Like, you know, so-and-so has 1 million followers or has a huge email list. But the problem is inside, and what we're doing, which is why I say I'm taking somewhat of a risk to offer and sell a program that gives people what they need. What we're doing is going from the inside out. And we're saying, we're going to take a look at who we are as coaches, who our seekers are as people. What can we offer them that's valuable to them in terms of them taking action, buying the products, and them being interested, being magnetized to the conversation. And then once we have that piece figured out, now we can start attracting people into the conversation, especially when we talk about online, social media, and all the things that are out there that most people think are the success of the business. They're not the success of the business. And I learned this recently. Yes, it does take guts, Carrie. I learned both in several different applications of that. I learned this recently where I spent a lot of money and spent a lot of time growing our YouTube reach, but an increase of people watching videos doesn't necessarily translate into an increase of customers unless once you get them off of that platform and into your playground, there's something solid built there. And that was one of the things that my YouTube experience exposed for me, is that we didn't have, and we'll usually call them funnels. We didn't have funnels and sequences that nurtured people into sales. So it doesn't really matter if we have a bunch of people coming in. Now, having said that, there are plenty of people, there are ways to buy. There are plenty of people who've watched the videos and then come on in and purchase the programs, but it hasn't been optimized, right? So whatever is going on internal has to be understood and polished as much as we can in order to then start bringing people into it. Yeah, Katie says you have to take care of the tribe that you have, and then other followers will come. And I think that's also very true. And if we just try to go after a bunch of new traffic and a bunch of new followers, and we don't have the systems or the capacity or the team or the infrastructure to give those people a good experience, then you don't want to just keep cramming people into your living room when there's nowhere to sit and nothing to eat. And yet that's what a lot of people are spending a lot of time and money learning how to do. How do I put more people into the funnels that aren't even good, right? So it's an internal process, inside out process. And I think you all know that. Let me get to a few of these thoughts that I have on the slide. Number one, visibility is a massive, massive issue. You cannot be hurt unless you are visible. So if we take this down to a primal fear and primal thinking, primal meaning just elementary basically, and original, like origin, as we were thinking when we were really, really young. We learned at some point in time, every single one of us, that the only way to be hurt, whether it's physical, emotional, energetic or any other way. The only way to be hurt is if somebody sees us, because if they can't see us, they can't hurt us. And so we've all made a decision. Some of it is really deep for some of us, and it's got a ton of evidence. And for some of us, it's not that deep. But we've all made a decision that we would prefer to be safe and unhurt. And the way to stay safe and unhurt, according to the unconscious mind, is to not be visible. Nobody can tell you that you are a lying piece of crap or that you don't know what you're talking about if they don't know you, if they don't see you. And visibility is what all of those other marketing components that I talked about, like increasing your following and increasing your email list and all that. So really what you're doing is you're increasing your visibility. You're increasing the number of people that know you. You're increasing the number of people that can see you. And by doing that, you're increasing the number of people that can dislike you. You're increasing the number of people that can judge you, the number of people that can flat out attack you. So we all have a form of resistance towards visibility, myself included. I've been doing this work for 13 years. I have 1,000 videos on various YouTube channels. I've got tons of content out there. I've done hundreds and hundreds of days in seminars, led a bunch of seminars. I still have my own version of visibility issues. And understanding that we have a resistance to being visible is important to clearing whatever that is up. So if you know your visibility is because you don't want your parents to read what you're writing and get offended, well, we got to handle that. If your visibility is around your friends or other family members, not your parents, or if your visibility is, maybe you heard a story that somebody who was, unfortunately, we have stories of like celebrities being killed, John Lennon, or being kidnapped and held for ransom. I mean, these are not super common, but you might have made a decision that the easiest way to avoid physical danger is to not let anybody know who I am. Or if I do let them know who I am, I'm not actually going to talk about where I live, and they're not going to see my family, or whatever those decisions have been made. We've all made decisions to protect ourselves. And if we don't have the body, or if we don't have the decision freedom, let's say, meaning that we've made a decision to be safe and not let anybody see our family, but that decision is not allowing us to be transparent or to appeal to parenting, well, then our decision boundaries are not aligned with our goals. Or sometimes it's our bodies that are not aligned with those goals. Now, the bodies will usually be the ones that make those decision boundaries. So that's going to be not interchangeable, but that's going to be related to each other. But if you have the body, or you've got these boundaries that won't allow, let's just for the sake of putting a number on it and an analogy, a clear example, if you have the body that won't allow 5,000 people looking at you, then the last thing you should do is learn how to get 5,000 followers on Instagram, right? And I know most people won't think that that's exactly what the game is, and it's not conscious like that. But whatever our visibility boundaries are, we're not going to be able to just force ourselves through that. And then once we get 5,000 people looking at us, the visibility fears will go away. Yeah, I don't think anybody literally believes this to be true, but most people are operating as they do. If I could just be successful, then all of my internal problems will be solved, whether it's my relationships at home or money or my body image or whatever. The unconscious mind convinces us that if we could just get the success, well, then these issues could be healed, or they won't matter, because then we can out-success our fears. We can outperform our traumas. And in reality, more visibility and more exposure will just magnify whatever's already there, including money and success. So there are a lot of people who've become incredibly successful in this world of coaching, and they're more miserable than they've ever been in their lives. I've sat down with some of those people and looked into their eyes as they tell me that they have a 7-figure business and they're suicidal. So whatever is in the way internally from a conflict standpoint, that's what has to be addressed. Now, that doesn't mean we have to clear away all of our fears before we have the guts to actually go out there and do videos, because that's not true either. Number one, you're never going to clear away all your fears. And if you are committed to clearing away all your fears, you have to stay in motion for the new fears to keep coming up. But this is going to be a constant process of one foot and then the other foot, meaning we'll do the internal work, but at the same time, we got to take action. So maybe the right foot is the internal work and then the left foot is the action, and that action produces more internal work that's necessary, or it confirms that the internal work was done. And then we take more action. So, and do more internal work. So it's this constant collaboration of the internal game as well as the strategic game. But most people that are aware of the internal game are waiting for their internal fears to be completely gone so that they can then take action. And it will just never work that way. So I want you to be aware of your visibility fears and decisions that you've made. Even if it doesn't resonate with you that it's a fear, it's a resistance that all humans have to some degree. Some people have it so deep that they will never, ever allow themselves to be seen or to be heard or to be successful in any way because they haven't healed the visibility trauma. And for some people, it really, truly is traumatic. So as I was just saying, action is the only way to learn what the visibility fears are, as long as we stay aware and we capture our thoughts in our head. And action is also the only way to heal a lot of those traumas, because we have to confirm to ourselves that we can be in the situation that we used to be afraid of, and it doesn't scare us anymore. The other thing is you have to collect data in a business. You have to collect information and feedback in a business, and you being visible is the only way to do that. So if you're committed to making this a business, then there are just certain things that you're going to have to do. Sometimes you're just going to have to do them uncomfortably, and other times you might have to clear something before you actually take the action. But nobody has learned a way to grow comfortably, and nobody has learned a way to build a business without feedback and data and without a lot of stuff going wrong. If you know a lot of things are going to go wrong, now we can play with the judgment of wrong, and I don't want to do that right now, but if you know a lot of things are going to go wrong and you're going to experience a lot of failures, let's say you knew that you were going to have to experience 200 people telling you you are a slimy snake oil salesman that shouldn't be trusted. And I told you, but the 201st person is going to write you $1 million check. How quickly would you go try to find those 200 judgers, right? You'd probably do it pretty quick. You might even say things that tries to entice them to tell you that you are that. You might even tell them you're a slimy snake oil salesman. But if you knew on the other side of all of that is a $1 million check or whatever it is that means a lot to you, then you would move through it so much faster. But when we take a look at the single person that might have a judgment for us, and we don't have the leverage of what's waiting for us further down the road, and we don't have that urgency of we just got to get through this feedback so that we can learn and keep growing, then we just stay stuck and scared in the next step fears.